Hi, and welcome to Two CPAs and the Mic, the podcast where we talk tax, finance, and all things related to business. Whether you're a business owner, working professional, or someone who wants to start a career in accounting, this is the podcast for you. Hosted by CCK Strategies partners Jeff Frable and Sarah Mays, we dive into relevant business and tax matters with working professionals to make these topics less intimidating, relatable, and dare we say fun? Let's get down to business.
Welcome to this week's episode of Two CPAs and the Mic. We are so glad you're joining us. We are here to cover relevant business and tax topics, but to do it by applying straight talk, practical information, and not all the stuffiness and jargon that is usually associated with our industry as CPAs. Mays, you are back.
I am back, and it's good to be back.
It's good to have you.
Yes.
Now, a couple things have happened since you were here last.
Right.
We got new chairs.
We got new chairs. I love our new chairs.
Our new chairs are really nice.
Did you talk about that last week
Yes,
too?
we did. You weren't here. We fixed our mics, so
Okay.
they're a little bit better. We didn't talk about that, but we are like continuing to grow as a official podcasters, and we look legit all the time. But you were not here last time.
No, I know.
And you were learning, weren't you? Tell us what you were doing.
Yes, I was in a grueling, there's my G word, grueling 45-hour-long CVA course, Certified Valuation and Analyst. So yeah, I'm getting that. Our firm is growing. We're getting into more mergers and acquisitions and company valuations. So I stepped up to the plate for our partners.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
So you did was this like a webinar or self-study?
No, it was a live virtual class.
Okay.
There were about 11 of us total in the class. So we all had to take turns presenting, sharing, showing our calculations. And I am fabulous at Excel. No, absolutely not.
Because you're over the age of 45, right?
But a shout out to Janae Castile.
Was she there?
She is an instructor.
No way.
Yes, she is.
She's a CCK alum.
Yes, she is. And so, Janae, if you're listening, it was great to see you last week.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. So now, how do you pass this thing? Do you take a test, or what do you do? I have to take
an examination. It's a 5-hour test. So not as long as a CPA exam, but it is a 5-hour test. And then I also have to submit a case study. So I have to show that I can write a valuation report. So Joshua Coy, you're going to be in for it for the next 2 months.
Well, it's basically you went through this course, you get to take the test, then you get the 3 letters after your name.
That's right.
Additional 3 letters.
CPA, CVA.
Nice. KP's back.
Yes.
Hello.
KP,
happy to be here.
What's going on?
Well, I'm just glad. Last week I said, I'm so glad it's June.
Yes.
I'm still really glad it's June.
Yeah.
Still really glad it's June.
Getting warmer.
Love summer.
Getting
I love
warmer.
Summer.
Love summer.
I love flowers. I love people wearing bright colors. There's a lot of happiness.
So our listeners would like to know, I'm sure, because last time we talked about the speed trap, the Tulsa speed trap.
Yes.
It's still going on.
It is.
They're still out there this morning.
Wow.
So now it hasn't been a huge number of days since we recorded last, but they are still out there on South Yale giving out traffic tickets.
Well, it's hard I was going 45 miles an hour on a 2-lane road, and now it's 6 lanes.
And it's slower.
35. Yeah.
I felt terrible
and it's a
today.
hill.
I had lunch with a colleague. He was late. He got pulled over.
Oh, no.
On our roads?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
It was, I felt bad.
Did he
for
get
him.
a ticket or just a
He
warning?
did. He got a ticket.
Of course, they're giving
Yeah.
tickets out there.
Yep.
We should have told Clarence on his way down here too to be careful.
speed.
He doesn't speed. He sets that cruise control.
Yeah, he's okay. He doesn't
So things are amazing in Tulsa. We had the big Tulsa Tough cycling event this weekend downtown. So there were hundreds of cyclers downtown. It was
even in the rain.
Even in the rain, it was a rainy, dreary weekend. Humid as all get out, but it's all good. We're starting another week. A lot of things going on, and we are here podcasting today.
Love it.
So today we are talking about the customer experience.
Woo.
We have an incredible guest with us today, Dr. Toby Joplin.
Yes.
Good to have you, Toby. Thanks for joining us today.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Yay.
So Toby is, and we'll get into your bio, but Toby's an instructor or a professor at the University of Tulsa here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Has lots of different background and experience that he's going to share with us. But we're going to talk about customer experience. We're going to talk about how this is getting passed down to our our younger generations and our future leaders coming up? What kind of things are they learning? So as an entrepreneurial business owner, this is very important for you to listen to from the aspect of knowing what to expect when you talk about a customer experience. And then also, what are our future leaders, what are they learning there in academia coming out, and how this is going to benefit us? So, Toby, great to have you. Just start us off. Tell us, why should people listen to you? Why are you a big deal, Toby?
We think you are. We
Yes.
think you are.
Well, that's great. I'm glad you feel that way. I think it's very important for organizations to have a sustainable competitive strategy, and maybe later we'll talk about specifically why that's so personal to me. But we all benefit when organizations are successful, because organizations are made up of people, and people matter, right? And we want the people in our organizations to be successful. We want all our stakeholders to benefit from the success of our organizations. But too often we take that for granted. In fact, sometimes the biggest threat to our future success is our past success. And so
that's good.
Yeah. And so it's just really important to be thinking about, how are we getting better? And are we doing the things that are needed to have a sustainable competitive advantage?
It sounds like a lot of great things that we'll get into there. Give us a little bit of understanding of your journey from where you've been, what you've done, and to get to the place we are today.
Yes. Let me brag on him a little bit.
And
then he can brag.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So Toby, you are the founder of the Joplin Consulting Group.
That's correct.
And it is an organization that helps create or helps other organizations create, improve, and execute business strategies.
Yes.
So that's why he knows what he knows, why we have him on today. And then he is also the director at the University of Tulsa for the whole graduate business program.
Yes.
And you teach the capstone course, business strategy course. And I'm sorry, Clarence, I knocked on that table again. So for all the podcast listeners, you heard me knock on the table because I was emphasizing how cool it is.
It's really important.
Yes, he is the director. And then, but you also worked at OSU, and you were named in 2018, you were named the outstanding grad school professor for both Stillwater and Tulsa campuses. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. In fact, like 2 weeks ago, I got the Mayo Teaching Excellence Awards at TU. And so
congratulations.
Thanks. Thanks. And so I love being in the classroom. Sometimes I hear faculty say that they're really about the research, and, the price of admission is being in the classroom. There's no place I'd rather be than the classroom. And it's been really good for my clients. I have clients that I help, as you mentioned, to create, improve, and execute their business strategies. I have clients from Kansas City to Fort Worth. And my students love that, because when I'm teaching them about how to create an effective business strategy, I can say, well, let me explain how we applied this last week at Union State Bank in Kansas, or Crux Technologies in Fort Worth, or the different organizations I work with. So it's not just theory to me. My clients like it because I'm up to date on the latest best practices for business strategy. So it's a really good fit.
That's awesome.
Oh, it's exciting.
So one of your things, one of the things that you do is you talk about your sweet spot, your why. So what is your sweet spot? What's your why?
Yeah. And so if you can picture a Venn diagram with 3 circles, I believe one of those circles for organizations and individuals, one of those circles represents the things we're good at. I believe we're all given certain gifts, right? Things that we're better at than most people. The second circle represents the things we really enjoy, right? And the third circle is, what are the things that the world needs? So if you can picture those 3 circles in your mind, either as an organization or as an individual, where those 3 circles overlap is our sweet spot. And I believe that's the reason we are put on this earth. That is generally our purpose. And too often we get lured away from that by things going on around us. And so what I realized at a certain point in my life, because I did a tour of duty in, public accounting, and then as a CFO, as I realized,
tour of duty.
I love it.
It's very, very beneficial. I wouldn't trade it for anything. But I realized that what I loved was helping the organizations and individuals reach their goals. And so when I was 50 years old, I went back and got my PhD, which is pretty unusual to go back that late in life and get your PhD. In fact, shortly after I got my PhD, I was talking to my wife, Colleen. I said, Colleen, your wildest dreams, did you ever think you'd be married to a PhD? And she said, Toby, in my wildest dreams, you don't even make a cameo appearance. Right? I thought that was a little harsh. Right?
A little bit.
Yeah. But the point is that, it's never too late to understand, discover your sweet spot either as an organization, as an individual, and move closer to that. And I try to help both my students and my clients do that.
Nice. Well, okay, so you have your why, you have your sweet spot. So when you're working in that, you worked in different areas. You've said you've done your tour of duty and now you're in academia, but now you're helping guide future leaders. How has that shaped your view for how you connect that with working with businesses to the students? How does that connect?
It's personal for me because if you've been around at Tulsa a very long time, probably most of the people in this room have not been around that long, but you may remember a retail chain called Otasco.
Oh, I know Otasco. Yes.
Do you remember Otasco?
I do not remember.
I do.
Otasco.
Okay,
I
so
do.
Christy.
Yeah,
So
I do.
It was a retail chain with 600 locations in the Southeast United States, did about over $500 million a year in revenue, had been in business for 70 years. It was my first job out of college as an internal auditor, and later I was over all of their internal credit. And after I'd been there about 2 years, they filed bankruptcy on a Sunday. I didn't know you could file bankruptcy on a Sunday, but Monday was a payday, and they would have had to pay us all again.
Oh, dang.
My wife was pregnant with our first child, Heather, who you know,
Mhm.
and we had a contract on our first house, and I was unemployed and had no health insurance. And so at that point in my life, it became very personal to me to help organizations be successful because so many people are connected. And you guys know, most people live paycheck to paycheck. Even people are making pretty good money.
Mm-hmm.
And so to suddenly find out you don't have a job is devastating to most people. And so I want to help those organizations be successful. So I was shaped by that experience in the retail, but all things work for good. And here's what I discovered is that gave me the opportunity to segue into public accounting, passed the CPA exam, went to work for what at the time was the largest local CPA firm in Tulsa as an auditor, led audits and worked on different audits in different industries. Incredibly valuable experience. And then later I was a CFO. But again, after I did a couple of different stints as a CFO in different organizations, I learned that it's kind of fun to do the financial statements and help the organization from a financial standpoint. But golly, I love helping these employees reach their goals. And I love the organization get to the next level.
So, Toby, when you were doing different industries as a CFO, did you find that people are people no matter what industry they are, or does it change based upon white collar versus blue collar or what?
I've worked in a variety of different industries, white collar professionals and organizations, honestly, that hired a whole lot of people that were making not a whole lot more than minimum wage, really different types of environments. But most people want the same things. They want to be happy and healthy, and they want their kids to have a better future than they did. And, helping people accomplish their goals, whatever those are for them, is very rewarding.
So what are you seeing in those industries where the employer is missing the mark by taking care of their people?
Sounds like a loaded question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's a heavy question.
If I could identify one thing that is the biggest red flag to me, it's complacency. And again, like going back to my Otasco days, Otasco was a great company for many years, but they'd grown complacent. I can remember standing in the hallway in front of the executive office there talking to the CEO and him saying, we're going to be back bigger and stronger and, we're doing the right things. I'm looking at the numbers and I'm like, he must have a different set of books than I do because it was very highly leveraged, right? And also I developed some biases about the risk of excessive debt. But yeah, it's all been a learning experience, right? With the different organizations, regardless of what type of organization it is.
Yeah. When you were mentioning something about complacency, Toby, because we all tend to think that we're innovative and we're forward thinking and we're trying to get better. But sometimes when we try to force change for change's sake, that can oftentimes lead us and just keep us in the same spot. I think there's a Huey Lewis song that goes along with that. And I'm trying to say it better. But when we want to get better, we have to be really intentional about those steps, even if they're small, tiny steps.
That's why it's so important to have a plan, right? And go through the steps, the best practices for creating a strategy. Because I have, over the years, developed a certain niche in banking clients. And what might be the best strategy for one bank may not be the best strategy for another bank, because you want to look internally about what are our strengths, the things that we're uniquely better at than other competitor banks, and what's going on in the external environment, right? In the economy and interest rates and that type of thing. And how do we respond to that? And your strengths are likely to be a little bit different than another bank's. And so what strategy makes the most sense for you as a bank could be different from another bank.
So do you have a specific process that you work through, Toby, that you can share with us?
Yeah. In fact, when I don't think I mentioned this, but in between the time I became a CFO and while I was in public accounting, I spent about 10 years in the software industry working for companies that develop accounting software, tax software. And I initially worked for a privately held company in Tulsa. And when they got ready to sell, they asked me to help them because I'd been taking a strategy course while I was working on my MBA. And I was fascinated by this course, just amazed by it. It was so interesting to me. And I
have to ask, because when I hear strategy, it means different things to different people, but something piqued your interest. What was it about that course that got you, I don't know, fired up? Because we're talking about it today. So something about that fired you up.
It was a complete game changer for me in my career because at the time I was using a textbook by a then relatively unknown academic in California named Jim Collins. He went on to write.
Nice setup, Toby.
Okay.
Nice setup.
He went on to write a few more popular books than this academic textbook. Good to Great, Built to Last, and others. In fact, he has a new book out that's really good. And so, but the thing that was really interesting to me about that book is he tends to look at companies or individuals in matched pairs. Two companies that were very similar industries, and one was successful, one was not. Why? And that's how he builds his research. And so that was interesting to me to look at these matched pairs and understand what made some companies successful and others less successful. And so at the time, we were looking at either going public, the software company I worked for, or selling out to a competitor. And the chief operating officer at our company, a guy named Brandon Lyons, came to me.
I know him.
Yeah, he's a keeper. He's a great guy. He came to me and goes, listen, we noticed that you're doing something I had about 120 employees that reported to me there. He said, you've been doing something in your departments. We look at your KPIs and there's just been a hockey stick change in positive results. He asked me what I was doing, I explained it. He says, could you help us write our plan, our road show for going around and for preparing to go public? And so I helped him with that. We ended up not going public. We sold out to Intuit. And our employees that company tended to get scattered to the four winds, right? You sell out to it. Not everybody wants to move to California or Dallas. But when those employees, the future companies they went to, somebody there would say, we need someone to help us with strategy. They'd go, oh, I know a guy I used to work with. Right. And so I started getting calls over the years going, hey, we heard you help companies with strategy. Would you talk to us? But it all started because of that class. And providentially, I went to a lunch where the president of Zebco, you may remember Jim Dawson was the president of Zebco years ago. And he talked about in passing that he felt one of Zebco's strengths was their ability to create strategy. Well, I was, I guess, a little presumptuous. A few days later, I called up Zebco. I said, could I speak to Jim Dawson? He's the president of the company, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, who is this? They said, I will have to call you back. Well, sure enough, a couple of days later, they call back and said, Jim Dawson will be happy to meet with you.
Oh, that's cool.
And he sat down and walked me through how they create strategy. And so those two things, that class, my experience at the software company, and then my experience with Jim Dawson really helped shape the process I use. And so I have very specific steps I go to, probably 75% borrowed from that Jim Collins book, and then 25% my own secret sauce.
All right, I'm going to take it away, you guys. It's just make the call. The courageous act of just picking up the phone and being bold enough to say, I'm going to call this guy. What's the worst can happen? He will tell me, sorry, he's not going to call you back, or you just don't get a call.
Yeah.
But you just picked up the phone and you called. That's a message in itself. That could be a podcast in itself. That is...
Not everybody does that these days.
That's a nugget. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah. And, I wish I'd understood that earlier in life, actually, but this is kind of a tangent, but not completely. I work with a group now that every summer has a 7-week leadership study for college students. And one of their values is we share our friends. And I tell that story as like, don't wait on somebody to assign you a mentor or for someone to happen. Think of someone you admire and say, can I buy you a cup of coffee? I'd really like to pick your brain. Most people will allow you that time and be happy to help you. So
yeah, we hear that. We hear that time and time again. If you're waiting for someone to come up to you, it's more so the other way around. Find someone that you really want to interact with and be brave enough to just go up and ask them. I think if anyone came to me, I'd be like, oh yeah, sure. Let's do this. They're going to react to you positively most every time.
the research shows successful organizations, successful individuals tend to be proactive. They don't wait on something to happen. They go out and make something happen.
So, Toby, going back to your strategy discussion, strategy is such a broadly interpreted word.
Yeah.
What
Good
was
job.
What was it last time I was doing revocable? And our guest was like, it's really revocable. I'm like, well, I from Western Oklahoma, I call it revocable.
We're going to go
Oh.
with
But it's widely interpreted. So how do you define strategy, especially in the as we're talking about it today? How do you define it?
A lot of people are intimidated by the idea of creating a strategy. They go, this sounds really complicated or academic or theoretical. And really, a strategy is just creating a plan for getting from where you are to where you want to be, right? And so I follow certain specific steps. Again, probably 75% I borrow from Jim Collins. We start with understanding the company's vision, right? Their core values. What are those 6 or 8 principles that you would not consciously violate, right? That you would walk away from a great business opportunity before you'd consciously violate those values. And level up from that is your purpose. Your purpose is like your North Star, your compass. You're always pursuing it, but you never completely fulfill it. As an organization, as long as you're in business, as an individual, as long as you're alive on this earth, you're always pursuing it. And our mission, the third part of the vision, is that big, hairy, audacious goal. What is that?
BHAG.
Come
Let's
on.
go.
BHAG, right. What is that big goal that you want to accomplish in the next 5 to 10 years? You used to say 5 to 10 years, but since COVID, I find the time horizon shrinking because there's a lot more uncertainty in the world. And that is, what is that goal? It's measurable, has a clear finish line. You absolutely know when it's done. And when you complete it, you set another one, right? And so you start with the vision. Then you engage in a SWOT analysis. We've heard that our whole lives: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. But I'll challenge my clients. Ask them what they think their strengths are. Do you have any objective data to back that up? Because here's what I find whenever I meet with a client or prospective client. I say, tell me about the strengths of your organization. Every company says this. Oh,
It's our people.
our people, our employees are our competitive advantage. I say, okay, well, maybe. But do you know that every company I talk to says that, and it is statistically impossible for every company to have above average employees? Where all the idiots work.
Right.
Now, maybe the companies that hire idiots don't do strategic planning, right? But I try to push them to find objective data to back up the things that they believe about their strengths and weaknesses. We look at the opportunities and threats externally, and then we, based on our strengths internally, the opportunities externally, and our mission, our vision, right? What are the things we can specifically do to take advantage of our strengths and the opportunities that will move us closer to fulfilling our mission in the next 5 years? So the subject. So personally, I might set an objective to lose weight, right? Like I said, I want to lose 10 pounds. Setting that goal doesn't make it happen.
Absolutely not.
Right? And so we do set objectives.
What if I have the people?
Well,
Christy.
objective data for your people are better, right? And so we want to set aggressive goals, but then you need an action plan that will almost inevitably result in the completion of that objective, right? And so if I want to set a goal to lose 10 pounds, setting the goal doesn't do any good. I can put it on the refrigerator and look at it every day. It doesn't make me lose weight. But if I do a certain amount of cardio, limit my calorie intake, run what I call a calorie deficit every day, right? I'll lose weight. It's inevitable. And it seems a little presumptuous, but we can do almost the same thing in business. Nobody bats 1,000%. You don't achieve all your goals, but most of our objectives we can accomplish if we break it down into action plans that will move us closer to accomplishing those things. You need a measurement system, some way to keep score, right? You may have heard the rumor I'm a basketball guy. It's true. And so if we were to go out in the parking lot and throw out some basketballs, we've thrown up trick shots. Jeff's a basketball guy. I've sat in his seats, ORU games.
Yeah.
And so we might be out there, shooting hook shots behind our back. But if we split into 2 teams and kept score, we would play the game differently.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
Sarah
I'd
and I
still
would
was-
smoke you.
Absolutely
would.
not.
Yeah.
Right?
Sarah.
Absolutely
But
not.
when we keep score and
Yes.
share that with the employees, they perform at a higher level.
Yeah, that's true. That
And
is
we
true.
need to communicate the results to our stakeholders.
That's pretty simplified.
It's
Practical.
It's honestly, it's not easy, but it's not complicated.
The process of building a strategy can be awfully intimidating.
Yeah.
But what you just explained is very practical.
It's very doable.
Yeah.
What happens if team members are not strategy minded? Do they even belong in the room or?
Well, it depends on
Yes.
the level. One thing that I borrowed from that very first Jim Collins book and I literally say it in my class to my students every day, and I tell my clients this, the number one responsibility of a leader is to create a clear and compelling vision of the future and secure vigorous pursuit of that vision by the employees. And the employees should be able to capture that vision. If they're not, you have to look in the mirror first, say, as a leader, am I not adequately explaining how important this is, what a great opportunity it is, right? But over time, some people are just in the wrong spot or in the wrong organization. It doesn't mean they're bad people, right? Their sweet spot is not something they can accomplish in your organization, and that's okay. I've had lots of employees that over the years that after long discussions, I helped move to a better opportunity somewhere else. And it was a hard conversation, and they later thanked me, right? Right, because it did allow them to move to closer to their sweet spot.
You also mentioned core values in identifying those. How important are they in the strategy process, and why?
Yeah, hugely important. In fact, by the time an organization engages me, a lot of time they're ready to make some decisions. Let's get some stuff going, right? But by the time they pull the trigger, a lot of type A personalities, and so I'll start with the core values and the purpose. They're like, well, enough with the soft stuff, man. Let's make some stinking decisions.
Sure.
And I'm like, you know what? The vision is actually can be a competitive advantage for your organization and a game changer, because one thing I've noticed is more so today with the current generation graduating, they want to be a part of something more important than themselves. And if you can establish a vision that is compelling and they understand how they contribute to that vision, most of them will get on board because they want to be a part of something that matters.
Without vision,
people perish.
Thank you.
There's something there, right?
we'll just speed that up.
It's amazing when you're on a podcast how you tend to forget the last part of your.
Oh, I remembered that. So it was a lead up. I knew Toby would.
I just didn't want to talk over you. I was waiting to see if you were going to finish it.
You knew it. It's interesting, Toby, when you talk about the core values. Not every company has them in place. Do you ever have to go in and help them identify what they are, even if they have them? Maybe they're unspoken.
Yeah, and most of us as individuals or as organizations, we have values, but we don't necessarily articulate them and realize them. In fact, I would suggest to you that we don't so much decide on our core values as we discover them. It's like they're encoded on our DNA, right?
Yeah.
In fact, when I have my students, I assign a project to them each semester in my strategy class where they, about 2/3 of the way through the semester, they take these concepts we just talked about. And I tell them, I go, listen, when you graduate, you're probably not going to be in charge of the strategy at Williams Companies or One Oak or Google or Apple or whatever. But you can apply these concepts to your career. So I assign them to create a strategy for their careers. And I tell them, I'm going to provide you with a list you can go through of potential core values. But this isn't some buffet you go through, right? And go, ooh, well,
I'd like to be integrity. I'm having words.
We're with you, Jeff.
I want to have integrity, so therefore I will choose it.
Yeah, or everybody's talking about innovation. I guess I should write down. No, I provide the list just to remind them that are like, nope, not that one. Nope. Oh yeah, this is so me, right? Yeah. One of my personal core values that I don't put this on the list because it doesn't mean anything to some people, and that is it very important to me to have a high say-do ratio.
We know that from you.
Yeah.
The high say
it again.
High say-do ratio. That is, if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm stinking going to do it, or I will die trying.
Yeah.
And I didn't so much decide on that, or because I think people want that, although I think people appreciate it, is it just eats at me. If I tell you I'm going to do something, if you just said, hey, you need to show up at 2:00 today for this podcast, and I realized I was going to be late, I'd have been so angry at myself, right? Mm-hmm. And so, again, we don't so much decide our core values as we discover. Integrity shows up on a lot of lists, not surprising, right? I'm very results-oriented. I know that about me. And again, I didn't decide on that. It's if I'm working on a project and I don't see results, I have to manage myself. Go, okay, we may not see results on this project for a while. Take a breath, right? Because I know if I don't see results, I tend to get frustrated. Now, that's good for my clients because they pay me to help them achieve results, right? Yeah. But there are some things that we don't see the harvest on for a long time.
I've never thought about that, Toby, that these are discoverable versus, in other words, you discover them as you learn and as you go through things and you experience things, so they can change over time too as well, right? Or are they ingrained like DNA and you're just not going to get away from them?
Most are things that don't change. Like if you're someone A really great video, if you can find it on the internet, is a video by Marcus Buckingham called Trombone Player Wanted. And he talks about how you understand your strengths. And he says that typically the things that are important to us don't change that much. Like if we're a kid, if we're one of those kids that has to have order, our things are all organized on our desk, we're that way when we're 40 and we're working on a tax return, right? We're like, no. Everything's got to be organized.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're somebody who's like kind of thrives in the chaos, when we're a kid, we're that way when we're older too. We can get better at things, right? But
or if you go from decision to discovery, what if you do decide that these are my core values? And whenever you're actually in it, you realize these really are not my core values. These are just some words I selected.
Mm-hmm.
So going through that process, it is a discovery process.
I do occasionally run into organizations that have documented their core values and they're just words on the wall. If you ask the employees, okay, tell me about the core values of the organization, they're like, huh? Right? They can't do it. I will say one of the organizations that I am super impressed. Well, actually, I'll give you two examples. That I've done some work with Quick Trip Corporation. You're familiar with Quick Trip. And you'd have to be an idiot to not understand that Quick Trip expects you to live their values if you work there. And when they send out, worked on a project for about 3 months there, and I had a Quick Trip email address. So I got all the firm-wide emails. Every time they would send out an email announcement announcing the promotion or reassignment of employee, they say, and this employee has been promoted because, and they would give specific examples of how they're living their values.
Cool.
Right?
Yeah.
Another great example, House Smith Restaurants. You know House Smith?
Mm-hmm.
Upper Crust across the street, Charleston's. They've got about 12 restaurant concepts. Their mission, and you can see it on a plaque in every one of their restaurants, is to consistently exceed their guest expectations. Consistently exceed. And so, okay, but do they live it, right? Do they?
Mm-hmm.
Well, a while back, whenever my wife and I have a really good day, a really bad day, we go to Charleston's and get a filet. Well, several years ago, we were getting some remodeling work done on our house. And the contractor calls up on Friday and goes, hey, bad news. The materials didn't come in. I can't finish your remodel today. So that's a big problem. I got 20 dinner guests coming over on Sunday night and all my furniture is stacked in the living room. There's nothing I can do. I said, all right, Colin, we're going to Charleston's. We get a filet. So we go to Charleston's like we always do, order the filet. Server brings out our filet. She goes, would you mind cutting into your steak to make sure it's perfect? And then my wife, she's had a day. She's a little put out, right? So she cuts into her steak and she goes, it's fine. The server steps back and says, I'm so sorry. Fine is not good enough at Charleston's. Would you like us to remake your meal?
Wow.
In most places, if you said it's fine, they're like, great.
Yeah,
And they're on the,
yeah, right.
But she knew, or that server knew, that their mission is to consistently exceed their guest expectations. So fine isn't good enough. And so you encounter organizations where the employees get it and they're living it and they're pursuing it. And you see some others where they're like, core values, what are you talking about? Right?
Another example I have of that is I rented a car a couple of weeks ago. And, you always have this, you're supposed to refill the gas tank, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was sometime last year, I was on a trip and we literally drove about maybe 30 miles the entire time and we didn't fill up the gas tank. And so the whole conversation was, well, how are we going to respond when they say, did you fill up the tank? And luckily I wasn't the one responding, but when it happened, the guy who responded, that guy didn't care one bit about whether or not you filled up the tank. And you can tell when you walk into a place or a place of service or a retail place, it doesn't take you very long to figure out if they're living it or if they don't care. Is that right, Toby?
That's right. In fact, you probably know that Chick-fil-A is the fast food chain that has the highest per unit sales of any fast food chain, even though they're closed one day a week.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that many people don't realize is when you survey people that like Chick-fil-A and say, what is it you like most about Chick-fil-A? They do not say the chicken sandwich. They say, the employees say, please, thank you, and
my pleasure.
My pleasure.
My
right?
pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd think that would be something that would be easy to copy, but yet most fast food places don't do that. In fact, I heard this isn't my story, but it's a true story. I heard a guy talk about he stopped on the way to work to get a breakfast burrito. Right? He goes in the convenience store, gets a breakfast burrito, a cup of coffee, puts it on the counter. The cashier rings him up, pushes the receipt out, takes his money and gives him some change. And he turns and starts to walk out. And he turns around and looks at the cashier and goes, aren't you going to say thank you? And she said, it says it on the receipt.
Oh, no.
Now, compare that to the Chick-fil-A experience.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'll be honest, when I go to Chick-fil-A, I think for the most part, the employees mean that it's their pleasure.
I do too.
Right? I think it's sincere.
I'm sure that I am their favorite
And
customer. I'm sure of it.
Sure.
Yes.
You're right. That you can feel the vibe. If the employees are like, really? Are we meeting your expectations or exceeding them? Or are they just asking the question and moving on?
So what is it about that? Do they hire the right people? Do they reinforce the core values? Why do I feel like I am their number one customer?
But it helps to start with people who have the right disposition. And we can train people how to make a chicken sandwich or how to prepare a tax return, but you can't typically train work ethic or politeness and that type of thing. So you try to have, it's like making a cake, right? If you're making a cake, you need certain ingredients, and those don't include onions, peppers, and fajita, right? Those are different ingredients.
Not in my cakes.
You need to start with the right ingredients. Right. So it's important to start with employees that have the right characteristics. But then as an organization, every significant decision we make should be like Quick Trip, should be couched in, we did this because our mission, you may know, Quick Trip's mission is to provide opportunities for their employees to grow and succeed. And so everything they do drives creating opportunities for their employees to grow and succeed. You may know several years ago, Quick Trip started urgent care centers called MedWise, and they recently sold those off to St. Francis. And when they talked about why they decided to leave that, it wasn't because they weren't successful at MedWise. It was because the MedWise urgent centers were not creating as many opportunities for their employees to grow and succeed as the convenience stores. And so, again, when you make decisions of significance or even like promotion decisions, if you explain it in terms of because of our core values, because of our mission, employees will typically pick up on that and go, okay. And that'll either be something they want to be a part of or not. And that's okay, but you need the right people on the bus.
Yeah. So is this all part of the secret sauce conversation, or is this completely different?
It's a little bit different. And so, I took these steps that I talked about that I borrowed from Jim Collins. And honestly, there's a whole lot of books out there right now. You probably know this, there's been over 10, if you go on Amazon, there's over 10,000 books that have been written about strategy, right? There's over 50,000 books that talk about strategic planning that may not have strategy in the title. But if you read them, and you don't have to because I've read most of them, most of the steps, they give them different words, different terms, but it's kind of the same
thing. The same thing,
right? Yeah. In fact, I get new clients and occasionally they'll say, well, we've been using a system called Traction, the Entrepreneurial Operating System by Gino Wickman. It's a great system. It's old wine and new wineskins. It's the same steps, but you don't have objectives. You have rocks. And you don't have a communication plan or you have like L10 meetings, level 10 meetings. It's all good stuff, but it's the same steps.
Yeah.
My secret sauce is different. And this is what I found from research. I talked about, I got my PhD. One thing that's beneficial for my clients is when I talk about something, it's not my opinion. It's based on data and research. Here's what the research says. To have a sustainable competitive advantage, you have to check 4 boxes. You need to have a product, service, or resource that's valuable, rare, difficult to imitate, not easily substituted, right? And so if you don't check all 4 of those boxes, you may be on par with your competitors, but your competitors are going to copy you or imitate you or substitute, and don't have a sustainable competitive advantage. So I help my clients either discover or create a purple cow experience for their customers. And I borrowed that from Seth Godin. Seth Godin wrote the book called Purple Cow. Right? You may have read the book. He talks about his family's from New York. And so they were city dwellers, and they're driving through rural France, and they see some cows, and they're like, wow, cows. And they were amazed by these cows for about 30 minutes. And he says, after the new war off, they're like, no, cows.
No big deal.
Right.
And he says the same thing happens to us in business, is that we need an experience for our customers that is so remarkable that our customers can't quit talking about it. And potential customers are like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And so they don't see our competitors' products, even though they may be similar, they don't see it as an equal. They don't see it as the same thing. And I work with a lot of banks. Spoiler alert, you go to the bank websites and look at their products.
All looks the same.
They're all the same.
Checking accounts, savings accounts,
loans,
auto loans, mortgages. And so if you're selling the same thing as your competitors, we call that a commodity. Commodities sell based on price. But if you have a differentiation strategy based on a purple cow experience, customers are typically willing to pay a premium for that. So you have to create a purple cow experience And so I do that by helping them identify. I borrowed this from Chip and Dan Heath, their book, The Power of Moments. Beginnings, endings, peaks, and valleys in the lives of your customer.
Mhm.
What are those events? Because not all events in our lives have the same importance, right? Beginnings and endings, graduations, weddings, right? New business openings, new product launches. Identify those beginnings, endings, and peaks and valleys in your lives of your customers, and figure out how you can magnify them in such a way that your customers will never consider doing business with a competitor, even if they're selling checking accounts and savings accounts, and it looks the same at a certain level.
Or charging a lot less for their product. It's the concept of the experience that.
Yeah. Well, I like to look at it this way, regardless of whatever you're selling, right? If you're selling hamburgers or you're selling tax services. I heard a guy one time, he was complaining about the price of something. And the guy I was talking to said, sir, you're buying our products a little bit like buying oats. He says, if you want grade A, first high quality oats, you're going to pay a fair price for that. If you're willing to accept oats that have already been through the horse, you can get that a whole lot cheaper. So how do you create that experience that is so unique? And this really resonates with my banking clients, because think about it. The most important events in our lives, our banker is like got a ringside seat.
Mm-hmm.
When I bought my first car and I went down and financed it, there's my banker.
Yeah.
Back when I got my college loans, we went to our banker.
Yeah.
When I got married and added my wife, there's my banker.
Yeah.
Right. Bought my first house, my banker. Right. They've got a ringside seat. So how do you make that so special that your customers will never think of going to another competitor?
So how much of that plays into your clients, their background, the way they are made? Because you could want to create an experience like anything else, but you may not be gifted in that. So how do you overcome that?
We ask the customers, the customers define service. They decide whether the service has been good or not, the product's good or not. And so we ask them what's meaningful to them. I just recently did customer focus groups for a bank in Kansas, up by Kansas City. And the first night we met with the bank customers and talked about their experience and what types of things they value about the bank and could potentially value. And it was very useful. The next night we met with people in their community that bank somewhere else.
Okay.
Right? Because if you only talk to your bank customers, all the customers you've pissed off, right? They're already gone. You're not talking to them.
Right.
And so you don't understand why you may have a blind spot or a weakness that you could overcome.
That's your objective data.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
That's right.
How enlightening and eye-opening is that type of conversation for your client to hear the outcome of something like that?
It's good. In many ways, it's rewarding. The customers will many times talk about the things they love about the bank and how the bank's been there for them during tough times. But they'll also bring up friction points, things that make it difficult. And they're like, oh my gosh, our phone number you call in on is kind of a nightmare to navigate the different phone system. Punch 1 for this and 2 for that. What if we had a human being answer the phone, right? And so one of the most important things we can do is not create some new, amazing experience. Is just remove the pain points or the friction.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
One of my favorite examples, Savannah Bananas, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Jesse Cole looked at what are the things people don't like about baseball. The games are long, they're slow, and he removed those friction points. And so I'll be honest, I'm a sports purist. I would rather go to a traditional baseball game, but I've been to 2 banana ball games this year because I love the business model. There's every game they try 10 or 12 things new they've never done before, knowing that 10 of them won't work. And the next night they try 10 or 12 more. And after every night, after the last fan leaves, they huddle up and say, what worked, what didn't work, right? And they're always they call it plussing the experience. How do we make the game tomorrow better than the game today? If we did that as businesses, man, our odds of success would go way up.
Absolutely.
But you know what keeps us from doing that?
Pride.
Complacency.
Yeah. Complacency.
Complacency. Or we've been in business, like Otasco. We've been in business 70 years. We're not going anywhere.
Oh.
Maybe.
Nobody can do it better than us. So why change it? Why fix it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The things we tell ourselves.
So Toby, you spent a lot of time in academia and
About 10 years.
10 years.
Love that
And
word.
talk a little bit about, we touched on it earlier, but what are you seeing as far as future leaders coming out, future teammates? What you mentioned, kind of the way they're they're thinking about wanting a purpose, and how does all that play out in today's business world?
I talk to some employers who are frustrated with the current generation of graduates because they're like, well, they don't have a good work ethic, and they're not willing to put in the hours. And I do think this generation values things outside of just work. They want work-life balance. But as I mentioned earlier, they are just waiting for someone to inspire them, right? And so when I was in public accounting, you worked a lot of hours, right? I mean, we worked 60, 70, 80 hours. I remember one day specifically, I can see it in my mind. I'm walking out during tax season after 8 o'clock at night, and the partner looks at me going by, goes, "You just working half a day today?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, 12 hours, that's just half a day.
Oh, yeah.
And so I do think
That's awful.
It is.
yeah. Well, and I know CCK is not that type of firm, so I hesitate to use that example, but it really happened to me. Graduates today aren't as willing to work exorbitant amount of hours, but I think they do have a strong work ethic, but they're waiting to be inspired. They want to do something important. They don't want to just dig a hole and fill it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
When I went to work for that same CPA firm, the first thing they had me do until I had a job to work on was to 10 key the phone book.
I remember those days.
Right?
Just so you could practice
Yeah.
the 10 key?
Build your 10
Absolutely.
keys.
Yeah.
Oh.
I remember that.
And
Wow.
so, and I understand the value of it being able to accurately 10 key at that time.
Mhm.
And so I understand that. But students today don't want to feel like they're digging a hole and filling it up. They want to know, why are we doing this? And that's so important. Why, going back to our core values, our purpose, our vision, what's the why of this place?
Yes.
Why are we doing this? They want to understand the why. And so if you'll take the time to explain that to them and create that clear and compelling vision of the future, graduates today will rally around that. And that can be a competitive advantage because some of competitor employers are like, dig a hole and fill it up. We're going to pay you well for digging that hole and filling it up.
So just trying to think through this, when you have those kind of conversations, especially different generations, I would imagine someone from my position in my age having one of those conversations, my internal reaction needs to be, you're just asking me for information. You're asking me for guidance. It's not, better and you think you know all the answers. It's more like, I just want to know where we're going, what we're doing, and how do we get there. Is that right?
You took the words out of my mouth.
Nice.
Inside of each of us, there's a little kid that wants to know where are we going and when are we going to get there.
Yeah.
Right. And so as graduates going into the workforce, they want to know the same thing. It's like, well, so why are we doing this? And what a great opportunity as a manager, as an employer to go, oh man, I am so glad you asked.
Mm-hmm.
This is why what you're doing is so important. This is our big, hairy, audacious goal. This is a mission we're trying to accomplish. And this is how what you do every day contributes to that. Even if you're like a custodian or, doing something clerical, it's like, you know what? Your job is so important because you're working at the receptionist desk. You're the first person our clients see when they walk in our building. They are going to form their first opinion about our company based on their impression of you. What you do is so important, right? And so if you can help them understand that. So we shouldn't have this negative regular. What are you asking? Do your job, right?
Right.
Because I know better.
Right.
Well,
I'm the mom.
On the other side, my students will be like, after going through COVID, they've got, certain prejudices and biases, and a lot of them are looking for remote work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you guys know we can be pretty productive working remotely. But I would tell my students, I said, it is a real advantage to be in the office because some pretty important conversations happen when you go to get a refill on your cup of coffee and
Absolutely.
you run into a partner or a leader in your organization and just start having a conversation. When I got promoted from being an internal auditor at Otasco to being over the entire internal credit, and they did 70% of their business on in-house credit, it was because of a random chance encounter with the vice president of credit at Otasco. We didn't work remotely in those days, but if I had been, I'd have missed that opportunity. So I tell my students, go, listen, nothing wrong with wanting to work remotely. Know that it is a real opportunity to get to run into somebody in leadership in the hallway at your company.
Toby, I want to know if from a leader, from a business owner's perspective, they can hear you say, inspire them. They're curious. Feed that curiosity. Identify what makes them curious. We get that. From the other side, from the future workforce, from someone who is a new graduate or who is currently a student, how do we ingrain that thought process of also meeting us where we are?
Sure.
How do we help them clearly communicate what they're looking for
Yeah.
without them saying, hey man, I'm looking to be inspired.
Right.
But to say that and to communicate that in a way where we can actually have a productive conversation to make a difference.
Yeah. The other thing the data tells us about this generation of graduates is they're more entrepreneurial than previous generations. And we know that people tend to be more entrepreneurial when they are given autonomy and authority. And so if we tell employees, first of all, this bodes really well for CCK, is because I know you're a very entrepreneurial firm and you like working with entrepreneurs, you like that culture, is to be able to say to your new graduates that you hired, say, listen, we really want to empower you, right, to have more authority and a freedom. And a certain amount of that is earned, right? And so the more experience we have with you and the more success you have here, you will have more autonomy. And so let's just jump in and work together to figure out how we can get you to that point, right? And so in the beginning, there's typically most organizations, even ones that allow remote work, there'll be more in-office experience in the beginning. And you earned ability, the freedom to work remotely or with more autonomy.
So with this younger generation coming up and into the workforce and having the need to be inspired, let's just use that terminology, what's the best way for the firm or the organization to communicate that? Is it just emails? Is it in-person presentations? How often do you revisit things like vision? How's it best communicated?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned earlier the example of Quick Trip and how Smith Restaurants and how Quick Trip in every important announcement they make, they couch it in terms of their values. The other is, how do you reward people? How do you recognize people in relation to how well they're living the values? Now, I'm aware of some companies that have had people that were incredible rainmakers, right? They brought in business, but they violated pretty much every company value in the process, left a wake of bodies to accomplish that.
Yeah.
And what we tolerate, we sanction. And so if you allow people to violate your core values because they're rainmakers or they're a talented engineer or a talented accountant, you're sending a message that your values don't really matter. Here's an extreme example. When I worked at Intuit, I was a product manager. I had soup to nuts responsibility for a particular tax software product. One of my counterparts that worked on, and he was in San Diego, worked on QuickBooks. And he came up with the whole idea of QuickBooks merchant services to build the ability to take credit cards into QuickBooks. And it was very successful for QuickBooks at that time. And so this was a guy who at the time probably made about $100,000 as salary, and he had just a little bit of incentive comp and that type of thing. But one year at their annual innovation conference that Intuit hosts each year in San Francisco, they recognized him. His name's Hugh Malazzi. I encourage you to go out and Google Hugh Malazzi Intuit. You can watch the part of the conference where they recognize Hugh Malazzi for his innovation. And they call Hugh Malazzi up on board, and they give him the Founders Award for his innovation with QuickBooks and talk about some of the benefits he's going to receive for having received this work. And then they give him a golf tournament-sized check for $1 million, basically 10 years of salary. Now, what message do you think that sent to their employees? Because that wasn't part of Hugh's deal. He already had his base salary, his incentive comp. This was completely outside. Intuit says, this guy lives our core values. He's contributed huge value to the company. We want our employees to share in our success. Well, I'm sure Hugh's sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, right? He's going to be incredibly loyal after that point. Some of his colleagues who sit next in the cubicle next to him at Intuit are probably thinking, Hugh's a smart guy, but I got some good ideas too, right? Well, they've just reinforced that innovation matters.
Yeah.
It's one of their core values, and it matters. And so the way you reward people, the way you correct people when they're not living those values, and the way you promote people, all that matters. It can't just be results. It also has to include the way you achieve those results.
Absolutely. Christy, I think we're about ready to wrap up, or I saw you taking notes over there.
Oh,
Are there anything there that you want to bring up?
I do. I'm going to go back to something that resonated with me deeply. And I wrote so many things, but one of the last things, what we tolerate, we sanction.
Yes.
Because so many times when it comes to the rainmaking, we tend to let some of those things slide, or we have a little bit more tolerance with that. And that...
Because we're making money.
Because we're making money. We're paying our salaries.
Right.
We're doing all of these things. And that's really important. But I think we also have to measure the trail of destruction that we're leaving behind us.
Yep.
The harm that we could be putting on others or on our own brand, internally or externally. That's powerful. That makes my heart hurt.
Yeah, you just never know who you're going to inspire or who you're going to make someone not be as inspiring as someone just by what you say and the way you say it.
It's a self-reflection. What am I doing? What am I saying? What are my actions? What impact are my actions having on the people around me? And what are my actions having on the brand?
Right.
It's personal.
Well, and it's destructive for the firm. You know, when we say what we tolerate, we sanction. When we tolerate mediocrity, our best employees will leave because they don't want to be part of a mediocre team.
It's true. Yeah.
Most people want to be part of something bigger and more successful than themselves. And then when they see you tolerate mediocrity, they will be attracted to something that aspires to a higher level.
I'm going to go to the 3 points of strategy too. The simplest: vision, your core values; purpose, your North Star, and your mission. I mean, simplified. There you go.
And it's not new, you know.
Yeah.
It's not
new.
I know.
It's not rocket.
Simple.
It's not rocket surgery.
Right. It's not rocket surgery.
But most companies don't take the time to do that. We're so busy working. We've heard this. We're so busy working in our business that we don't work on our business.
Yeah,
right. We're so busy cutting wood, we don't take time to stop and sharpen the saw.
Sharpen the saw. That's the whole thing. We always need to sharpen our saw.
So, Toby, if I'm a business owner and I'm listening to this and I've got some things that are just kind of tugging on my heart based upon some of the things I've heard you say, what's the one thing that business owners should do to make a step in the right direction to kind of overcome some of these hurdles that they think they have?
First of all, make sure you have a written, documented plan. If strategy is intimidating, just say a written, documented plan for how you're going to be successful, right? There's a researcher a few years ago in California that found that 84% of people have no written goals.
Yep.
About 13% have goals, but only in their mind. Only 3% of people have actually written goals. But the 3% that have written goals are 30 times more successful than people with no goals. And so why would you not have written goals? Now that's at the individual level. Let's think of, and so for people, the natural next question would be, well, what about the organizational level? The data indicates that only half of all organizations, half of all businesses have a formal written strategy. And so it's not unusual when I share this information with groups, they say, well, wow, that must really discourage you that so many companies don't even take the time to have a written plan. I said, no, I'm kind of like the shoe salesman, right? The shoe salesman, he gets sent to the third world country and his predecessor just got back. He goes, listen, nobody in that country wears shoes. There is no opportunity. And so the new guy gets there and says, he's right. Nobody here wears shoes. Unlimited opportunity. Send me all your inventory. And so when I hear half the companies out there don't have a written strategy, I'm like,
let's go.
My God.
Let's go.
I can help you with that.
Joplin Consulting Group.
Well, which is how we want to wrap things up, Toby. If someone is hearing this and they want to move forward, what's a good way to get in touch with you?
Yeah. So you can go to the University of Tulsa website, Google University of Tulsa, Toby Joplin, and find me on there, or you can go to joplinconsultinggroup.com. I'm happy to have a phone call with you.
Yeah.
When I figured out my sweet spot, and if I were to pull out my planner and show you I have my core values, purpose, and mission written down the front of my planner, it says my mission is to help organizations and individuals reach their goals. And so I'm happy to have a call with you and just talk at a high level for an hour and say, where you at? What do you think's missing? And try to help you diagnose it at a high level. And you don't owe me anything for that. That's my mission. That's what I want to do.
Be a resource.
Yeah.
Be a resource and help people. So, well, with that, we are going into our last segment here.
Yeah.
And we're doing today,
Would you rather?
So these are my questions.
Yeah,
I'm asking.
you're going to do it.
So, Toby, we'd like for our audience get to know you a little bit better.
Audience, if you could just see Toby's face.
So,
yes.
And we know you referenced it earlier. You have a little bit of a basketball background. So
Got my ball in my truck.
here we go. Here's your would you rathers that are related to basketball.
Yes.
Would you rather have everyone think you're good or actually be good?
Be good.
Would you rather be the best player at your local gym or the worst player in the D League? Or the G League. I'm sorry, the G League.
Yes. Gatorade League. Yeah. Oh, that's a tough question. I would probably say the worst player in the G League.
Okay. Would you rather shoot 60% from three or dunk every time?
60% from three. Chicks dig the long ball.
Would you rather average 30 points but lose every game or average 5 points and win every game?
5 points and win every game. We play for the name on the front of the jersey, not the name on the back.
There we go. Would you rather play with ball hogs or guys who never shoot?
I think there's a third option. Everybody needs to contribute, right? Alex Caruso.
Mm-hmm.
He's not known as a scorer. He's not
Right.
known as a scorer, but he's the glue guy. And so you can contribute in other ways than just scoring. But I don't want to play with the ball hog either. You're like a black hole. The ball goes in and never comes out.
Last one. Would you rather have elite basketball IQ but no athleticism, or elite athleticism but no basketball
I'm
IQ?
already the first. My students and clients go, well, you go by this Dr. J moniker, and you're always talking about using basketball analogies. You must have been really good at basketball. No, I was very average. In high school, junior high, I was the guy that came off the bench.
Uh-huh.
But as you know, much like Jeff, you can find me behind the bench at every home TU game,
Mm-hmm.
right? In fact, I got an email today. Practice starts for next year. This week, I'll be at practice tomorrow at 2:45.
All right. Have you been tracking how many? Because TU actually had a great year. They came in. They went to the NIT.
Finals in
the NIT. Yeah.
Yep. And played Auburn. Took Auburn to overtime. Auburn has about 4 times the NIL budget of TU, and we took them to overtime. And last year, Coach Conkle recruited shooters, right? And they led the league and were ranked very high nationally in shooting percentage, their ability to shoot. We've signed 4 or 5 guys this year, 6'11" or high.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay.
We're going for height this year. So
Okay.
it'll be fun.
So lose very many in the portal this year?
Yeah, it's kind of the way it is now. Is you have 10 new faces every year. And so hats off to our college coaches, because, you could go out and find an athlete who's a project. And I talked to Coach Conkle, and I actually have been talking to Angie Nelp, our women's coach, regularly here over the summer on some things that might be able to help her with. But anyway, not on the court, but some personality and teamwork stuff. But man, they start over every year with like 10 new players.
Yeah.
You have to build team chemistry and and get them adapted to your culture.
Well, we will be coming to your place this year for the Mayor's Cup. So every
Always
year,
fun.
TU and ORU play, and they switch back and
nice.
forth. And this year, we're going back to Reynolds Stadium. Or not Reynolds Stadium, right? Yeah, the arena. All right, Toby, thanks so much for joining us today. A lot of good stuff there. Sarah, do you want to wrap us up with the podcast?
Yes. All right.
CPE, or I'm sorry, the podcast email.
It's CPE. Yes.
I have CPE on mine.
This podcast does not qualify for CPE. However, if you would like to have, or if you have any questions or comments, or just want to say hi, please email us at podcast@cckcpa.com. And when you do listen to our podcast, please like it, share it, and comment. We really want to see those comments come in, because Christy is just chomping at the bit, ready to respond to your emails.
Oh, you know it.
Yes. Also, we just like to wrap up every episode and just say a special thank you. First of all, to CCK Strategies. Thank you so much for the opportunity to have this amazing podcast platform. Thanks to Christy for always keeping us on the straight and narrow and making sure we say good words and not bad words.
In line with the brand.
And thank you to my wonderful husband, Robert Mays, for all of the intro and outro music. And thank you for fixing my phone this week. I really appreciate it. And then also to Clarence at Tulsa Internet Marketing Services. Thank you so much for all you do and your amazing staff there. And thank you to Emily Johansson. She is the best of the best here at CCK, and we just appreciate her every single week when she helps us get our podcast across the finish line. So, all to say, everybody out there, join us next time as these two CPAs get together to chat, and you'll get to find out who's on the mic. The information provided on this podcast is for general informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute accounting, tax, legal, or financial advice. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, laws and regulations change and individual circumstances vary. Always consult with a qualified CPA or professional advisor before making any financial or business decisions. The views expressed by the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of any organizations they are affiliated with. Listening to this podcast does not create a client-accountant relationship. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge and agree to those terms. And that's a wrap for this episode of Two CPAs and the Mic. If you found today's episode helpful, please subscribe, share, and leave us a review. Have questions or ideas for a topic? Reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Email us at podcast@cckcpa.com.